Post 1. I never thought I'd be in this position, but here I am. I'm a 32-year-old female, and I've worked at the same mid-sized company for nearly a decade. I started as an entry-level employee right out of college, worked my way up through sheer hard work, and eventually landed a supervisor role about 2 years ago. I've always been proud of what I've built here. My team isn't perfect, but I care about them, and I've worked hard to create a supportive, organized environment where we can succeed together. The problem is my stepbrother Trevor. Trevor is 27, and let's just say his resume isn't exactly impressive. He's bounced from job to job, never staying longer than a few months. He's the type of guy who thinks networking means mooching off family connections, not actually building skills. Unfortunately for me, he got into my department through my stepdad's pull. My stepdad has been married to my mom since I was in high school, and he's always favored Trevor, his only biological kid, over me. He practically begged me to do him a solid and help Trevor out. I resisted at first, but my stepdad went behind my back and talked directly to one of the executives he plays golf with. Next thing I knew, Trevor was hired, and not in some faraway department, but in mine. From day one, it was a nightmare. Trevor was late on his very first shift. He strolled in with a coffee and said, "Sorry, traffic." Like that explained everything. Never mind that everyone else managed to get there on time. He spent most of the day chatting people up instead of doing his actual tasks. And when I gave him feedback, he smirked and said, "Relax, sis. Family should stick together." That phrase, "family should stick together," has become his shield against accountability. Every time I remind him to log his work properly, or when a coworker points out he isn't pulling his weight, Trevor turns it into a family loyalty thing. He acts like my authority, as his supervisor doesn't apply because of our step-sibling relationship. Things came to a head last week when he mishandled a major client order. Instead of following the system, he made changes on the fly without telling anyone. The order went out wrong. The client was furious, and we nearly lost them. When I pulled Trevor aside to ask what happened, he immediately blamed 2 other team members. The kicker, I already knew from the system logs it was his mistake. He just flat out lied. That was it for me. I documented the incident, followed company protocol, and wrote him up. It wasn't personal. It wasn't even about being his stepsister. It was about protecting my team and showing I wouldn't tolerate lies and laziness from anyone. But of course, Trevor ran straight home crying foul. He told my stepdad that I'm abusing my authority and trying to ruin his career. That night, my mum called me nearly in tears, saying I should have just looked the other way because he's family. My stepdad was even more direct. He accused me of being jealous of Trevor, claiming I didn't want him to succeed. He said I should be mentoring him instead of tearing him down. I tried to explain that it wasn't about family. It was about work. I have a responsibility to my entire team, not just him. If I let Trevor slide, everyone else would see the double standard and morale would tank. But my stepdad doesn't care about that. He cares about Trevor looking good. Now things are tense at work and at home. My co-workers are aware of what's going on. Trevor isn't exactly subtle about bragging that my dad won't let her fire me. A couple of them have pulled me aside and said they support me. But I can tell the situation is making everyone uncomfortable. It's hard to feel like a strong leader when your authority is constantly undermined by someone who's supposed to be family. I've spent the last few nights lying awake, second-guessing myself. Did I overreact? Could I have just reassigned him to a different task, instead of writing him up formally? Maybe I should have given him yet another warning. But then I remind myself, if this had been anyone else, I wouldn't even be questioning it. I would have written them up without hesitation, because that's what the situation demanded. The only reason I'm spinning myself in circles is because Trevor is family, and that's exactly what he's exploiting. So here I am, stuck between my professional responsibilities and my family's constant pressure. Writing him up felt like the right thing to do, but now I'm the villain in my own household. So, am I the jerk for writing up my stepbrother, even though it's my job? First comment: you're not wrong. If anything, you went too easy on him. Most managers would have fired Trevor already. Second comment: family and business don't mix. He's counting on your stepdad's influence to protect him, not on his own ability to do the job. Update 1. Hi again. Thanks to everyone who weighed in. Reading your comments gave me a lot of clarity. Some of you asked for more specifics about Trevor's behavior and how my company handles write-ups, so I'll address those first before I explain what happened since my last post. Yes, we have a 3-strike system. First is a written warning, second is a performance improvement plan, and third is termination if things don't improve. Trevor was on his very first write-up. He didn't lose his job. He just got a documented warning. But you wouldn't know that if you listened to the way he's been telling the story. According to him, I nearly fired him on the spot and humiliated him in front of everyone. Neither is true. I pulled him into my office privately, went over the incident with him, and explained what needed to change. He rolled his eyes the entire time and walked out saying, "This is ridiculous." The fallout since then has been ugly. The morning after my original post, Trevor came into work late again. Only this time, he made sure to make a scene. He sauntered in nearly an hour late with a smug grin and loudly announced, "Sorry guys, my evil stepsister had me chained to my desk last night." Writing essays about how bad I am at my job, a few of my team members laughed awkwardly, but mostly people just looked uncomfortable. He was clearly trying to undermine me publicly. Later that afternoon, I was pulled into HR. Apparently, Trevor had already filed a hostile work environment complaint against me. He claimed I was targeting him unfairly, nitpicking everything he did, and creating a toxic atmosphere. HR asked me to explain my side, and thankfully, I had all my documentation, including the system logs from the client order he messed up. When I showed them, they nodded and said they understood. They told me to keep documenting everything and reassured me that I hadn't broken any policy. Still, it shook me. I knew Trevor was manipulative, but to see him escalate to HR just confirmed he's willing to burn everything down to avoid accountability. Things at home got even worse. My stepdad cornered me during Sunday dinner. He practically barked across the table. "What's wrong with you? He's your brother. You're supposed to protect him, not set him up to fail." I reminded him that Trevor is a grown man with his own choices to make, and I'm not setting him up for anything. I'm just holding him to the same standard as everyone else. My stepdad scoffed and said, "You've always been jealous of Trevor. You can't stand that people like him more." My mum just sat there, wringing her hands, not saying a word. That part hurt the most. My mum knows how hard I've worked for everything I have. She knows Trevor has coasted through life, but she refuses to speak up against my stepdad. She just mutters, "Let's not fight." like silence will magically make this problem disappear. Meanwhile, Trevor has doubled down at work. He started buddying up with a couple of my newer team members, trying to paint me as some kind of power-tripping manager. He told one of them, "Don't worry, she'll turn on you too." She only cares about making herself look good. That employee actually came to me privately and repeated it word for word. I thanked them for being honest, but I could tell they were shaken. Nobody wants to be caught in the middle of family drama at work. The most humiliating moment so far happened yesterday. We were in a team meeting with my boss present. I was reviewing our quarterly goals when Trevor interrupted me mid-sentence to say, "Wow, you sound like a robot." "Do you ever have fun, or do you just boss people around?" He grinned like it was a joke, but the tone was cutting. People chuckled nervously, but my boss's face went stony. I moved on quickly, but inside I was burning with embarrassment. After the meeting, my boss pulled me aside. He told me he was aware of the family dynamic and knew it was tricky. But he said flatly, "You need to get this under control. If Trevor can't respect you, we'll need to escalate to a higher level." It was both validating and terrifying. Validating because at least my boss sees it. Terrifying because if Trevor keeps pushing, this could jeopardize my standing. I went home that night and cried. I've worked too hard for too long to have my stepbrother sabotage me like this. I'm not perfect, but I try to be fair and consistent. And now I feel like I'm under a microscope just because of him. So now I'm stuck. Do I push for HR to move Trevor out of my department? Do I keep trying to manage him like any other employee and hope the documentation speaks for itself? Or do I risk becoming the bad guy in my family forever by pushing for him to be fired? Part of me worries that if I don't stand firm, he'll drag me down with him. But part of me still feels guilty, like maybe I could be handling this differently. So, am I the jerk for refusing to cut Trevor slack just because he's my stepbrother? First comment. He's manufacturing drama because he knows his dad will shield him. Keep documenting. HR will only care about the paper trail. Second comment. Honestly, get HR to move him. It's not fair to your team or to you. Family loyalty has no place at work. Update 2. Thanks for all the advice on my last post. I've been trying to follow it. Document, document, document. I've got a whole folder now. Emails, time logs, even notes from conversations. And thank goodness, because things have gone from bad to worse. After Trevor filed his hostile work environment complaint, HR did a check-in with my whole team. They didn't tell people what it was about, but everyone figured it out. Most of my team were professional. They said they didn't have any issues and that expectations were clear. But a couple of Trevor's new buddies parroted his line about me being too strict and making people nervous. It was vague, but enough for HR to keep the file open. I know that's just how the process works, but it still stings. I bust my tail, trying to be fair and approachable. And now I'm being painted like some cold dictator because Trevor doesn't want to do his job. Home hasn't been any better. My stepdad is full on furious with me now. He came by my apartment to talk, but it was basically a lecture. He told me family should come first and accused me of ruining Trevor's future. He even had the nerve to say, "You've always thought you were better than him, just because you got a good job." Don't think I don't see it. I told him point blank that Trevor is his own worst enemy. My stepdad stormed out and hasn't spoken to me since. My mum texts me little things, but it's all, please don't fight, or just try to get along. It's like she's terrified of choosing a side. But the real escalation happened at work. Last Friday, my boss asked me to lead a client presentation. This is something I've done dozens of times. I prepped like usual, had all the materials ready. The client arrived and we got started. Halfway through, Trevor barges into the room, late again, coffee in hand. Instead of slipping quietly into a chair, he goes, "Oh, sorry everyone. I guess I wasn't invited to the family reunion." Then he sat down and spent the rest of the meeting making little jokes under his breath. When I asked him to take notes, he rolled his eyes and said, "Sure thing, boss lady." The client looked confused. My boss looked furious. I powered through the presentation, but inside I was fuming. Afterward, my boss pulled me aside and said, "This can't continue. Get HR involved or I will." So, I scheduled another HR meeting. I laid everything out. The hostile environment complaint, the disruptions, the undermining. I told them that my ability to manage is being compromised because he's using our family connection as a shield. HR nodded a lot and said they'd review the case. They wouldn't give me a timeline, but they promised it was being taken seriously. I thought that would be the end of it. Until yesterday. I was grabbing lunch in the break room when Trevor came in with his little posse. He started loudly telling them, "Yeah, she's trying to get me fired." Can you believe it? My own stepsister. Guess some people can't stand to see me succeed. He was saying this while staring straight at me, daring me to respond. I ignored him, packed up my lunch, and walked out. But I could hear them laughing behind me. Later that day, one of my co-workers pulled me aside and said, "Hey, just so you know, Trevor's been telling people you only got this job because you sucked up to management and that you're jealous because he's more likable." I honestly laughed out loud. Likable? The guy's an HR case study waiting to happen. But I kept my cool and thanked them for telling me. And then came the final straw. Today, we had our monthly all-hands meeting. Big room, about 50 employees, plus leadership. I was giving an update on our department when Trevor suddenly stood up and said, "You forgot to mention how you punish people just for being family. Maybe that should be one of our quarterly goals. Alienate as many relatives as possible." The room went dead silent. I swear you could hear a pin drop. My boss snapped, "Trevor, sit down." Now. But the damage was done. Everyone was staring at me like we'd just brought a Thanksgiving fight into the office. I wrapped up my part of the meeting and sat down, but inside I was shaking with anger. I've been professional through all of this, and he's the one dragging family drama into work. After the meeting, HR called me immediately. They said what happened was unacceptable and that they'd be taking action. They didn't specify what yet, but I left the office with my stomach in knots. Meanwhile, my phone is blowing up with texts from my stepdad. "How could you do this to him? He's just a kid." He's 26, by the way. And from my mom, "Please, can't you just find a way to work together?" I don't know how much more I can take. I feel like no matter what I do, Trevor is determined to drag me down, and my family will never see him as the problem. So, am I the jerk for escalating this with HR instead of just handling it privately? Like my family keeps saying. First comment. He embarrassed you in front of 50 people. That's not a family issue. That's a workplace issue. HR has to handle it. Second comment. You're not wrong, But brace yourself. HR protects the company, not employees. Make sure your documentation is ironclad. Update 3. I thought things couldn't get worse after Trevor's outburst in the all-hands meeting. But apparently, I underestimated him. HR pulled him into a meeting after that fiasco. I wasn't present, but word travels. He stormed out afterward, red-faced, muttering about witch hunts and biased systems. The following day, he showed up at work in his usual smug mood, which made me think he hadn't learned a thing. At this point, my boss and HR both told me, keep your head down. We're monitoring. I tried. I really did. I poured myself into projects, avoided unnecessary interaction with Trevor, and leaned on my team for support. Most of them were solidly professional, though I could tell a couple still bought into Trevor's narrative about me being out to get him. But then came the public confrontation. Last week, I was leading a quarterly strategy session with about a dozen colleagues and 2 clients. Big deal meeting, lots of prep, high stakes. I was halfway through explaining our projected timelines when the conference room door banged open. Guess who? Trevor. He sauntered in late. Again, no notebook, no laptop, just a smug grin. I paused, expecting him to slip quietly into a chair. Instead, he plopped himself down at the head of the table opposite me. My seat, the one reserved for the presenter. I said, "Trevor, this is my presentation. Please take a regular seat." He smirked. "Relax. Just thought someone should be here to balance out your selective version of events." The room went cold. My clients exchanged looks. My boss stiffened. I tried to keep calm. "If you have feedback, you can share it during Q&A. For now, please let me continue." But Trevor wasn't done. He leaned back in the chair and said loudly, "Sure. Go ahead. Tell everyone how perfect you are. We'll just pretend you don't treat family like dirt and climb over people to get ahead." The silence was deafening. My face burned, but I forced myself to continue. I picked up my slides and pushed forward, even though I could feel the tension humming in the air. Then he interrupted again, louder. "Maybe if you spent less time acting like you're better than everyone, people wouldn't hate working under you." At that point, my boss snapped. He stood up, pointed to the door, and said, "Trevor, out. Now. You are disrupting a client meeting." Trevor laughed, actually laughed, and said, "Wow, I guess blood really is thicker than water. Everyone here knows she's only in this position because she cozied up to management. But I guess the truth makes people uncomfortable." The clients looked horrified. My team was frozen wide-eyed. My boss walked around the table, grabbed the meeting folder out of Trevor's hands and repeated, "Leave. This is your final warning." Trevor stormed out, slamming the door so hard a picture frame rattled off the wall. The meeting limped on, but the damage was done. I held it together, finished the presentation, and afterward had to spend an extra hour smoothing things over with the clients. They were polite, but I could tell they were rattled. Later that day, HR called me in again. This time they told me they were initiating formal disciplinary proceedings against Trevor for insubordination and unprofessional conduct. They asked me to submit every document, every email, every note I'd collected. I handed it all over. That night, my phone exploded. My stepdad called me 5 times in a row. When I finally answered, he was yelling so loudly I had to hold the phone away. He accused me of humiliating Trevor, of setting him up to fail, of being jealous because he's naturally charismatic and people like him better. I told him calmly that Trevor had disrupted a professional meeting with clients and that it had nothing to do with family. My stepdad wouldn't hear it. He shouted, "You've always hated him. You couldn't stand that I treated him like my real kid. Now you're punishing him in front of the world." Then he hung up. My mum texted afterward, "Please don't fight with your stepdad. He's just upset. Trevor is family. Can't you find another way?" Meanwhile, my co-workers were buzzing. Half of them told me privately they thought Trevor had finally gone too far. The other half were quiet, but I could see the unease. Nobody wants to be in the middle of family drama at work. As for Trevor, he's doubled down. He posted some vague nonsense on social media about toxic workplaces and family betraying family. A cousin even messaged me to say, "Wow, I didn't know you hated Trevor that much." So now he's spreading his side of the story outside the office too. I'm exhausted. I'm trying to stay professional, but I feel like I'm living in two wars at once. The workplace battle and the family battle. HR says they'll make a decision soon, but I can already hear the fallout with my family if he gets suspended or fired. Still, I can't let him keep sabotaging my work. I've worked too hard to build my career to let a petty, jealous stepbrother burn it down, because he can't handle accountability. So that's where we are. HR is investigating. My boss is furious. My family thinks I'm the villain, and I'm just trying to hang on until this nightmare finally ends. First comment: he humiliated you in front of clients. That's not family drama. That's grounds for termination. Second comment: honestly, HR should have acted sooner. He's a walking lawsuit waiting to happen. Update 4. HR finally made their move. 2 days after the disastrous client meeting, I was called in first thing in the morning. My boss was already there, looking grim but resolute. The HR manager got straight to the point. "We've reviewed the incident, along with your documentation and witness accounts. We've decided to suspend Trevor immediately, pending further disciplinary action." I can't describe the mix of relief and dread I felt in that moment. Relief because I wasn't crazy. Everything I'd endured was real and serious enough to warrant action. Dread because I knew my family was going to implode. Within an hour, Trevor had been escorted out. I didn't see it, but apparently he made a scene in the lobby, shouting about conspiracies and favoritism, saying things like, "You're only doing this because she's jealous of me," in front of customers. That didn't exactly help his case. I tried to bury myself in work afterward, but my phone kept buzzing. By lunchtime, I had 6 missed calls from my stepdad, 3 from my mom, and a long text from Trevor himself. It read, "Congrats. You got what you wanted. Hope you're happy ruining my career and destroying our family. You'll regret this when nobody at work or at home respects you." That evening, I caved and answered my stepdad's call. He didn't even say hello. He launched right into it. "Do you know what you've done? You've cost Trevor his livelihood. You've embarrassed this family. All because you can't handle that people like him." I tried to explain calmly that Trevor had humiliated me in front of clients, disrupted a critical meeting, and had been repeatedly insubordinate. My stepdad cut me off. "You're his sister. You're supposed to protect him, not stab him in the back. You've always resented him, and now you've proven it to the whole world. I snapped. I don't usually raise my voice, but I couldn't hold it in. He's not my brother in this office. He's an employee. And he has sabotaged me, disrespected me, and nearly tanked my career. If anyone stabbed anyone in the back, it was him. There was a long pause. And then my stepdad said, coldly, "You're dead to me." And he hung up. I sat there in my apartment, phone still in my hand, shaking. My mum texted later, begging me not to take things so personally, that my stepdad didn't mean it. She added, "Trevor is struggling. You should show compassion instead of punishment." I couldn't even bring myself to reply. Compassion? He'd been trying to wreck my professional reputation for months. The fallout at work has been messy, but oddly validating. After Trevor's suspension, several co-workers pulled me aside to say, "I'm glad HR finally acted," or "We've seen what you've been dealing with." Even my boss told me, "You've handled this more gracefully than most would." That helped, though the tension lingers, especially since HR hasn't announced whether Trevor's suspension will turn into termination. Meanwhile, Trevor hasn't gone quietly. He's been posting cryptic rants online. Fake people stab you when you least expect it, and family is supposed to have your back, not ruin your future. One of my cousins even reposted it with a "praying for you, bro." I didn't engage. I'm done fighting on social media. The biggest blow came this weekend. My family had a small gathering for my mum's birthday. I wasn't invited. I found out from photos on Facebook. There was my mum, stepdad, Trevor, and a bunch of relatives smiling for the camera. No seat for me. It hurt more than I thought it would. As much as I've always known my stepdad favoured Trevor, part of me hoped my mum would stand up for me. Instead, it looks like she's choosing to keep the peace with him, and I'm the collateral damage. So here I am. Professionally, I'm safer than I've been in months. HR is backing me, my boss is supportive, and clients have reassured me they're still confident in my work. But personally, my family ties feel shredded. I don't know if there's a way back from this. And honestly, I'm starting to wonder if I even want there to be. First comment: he's your co-worker, not your brother. HR had to act. And if your family can't see that, they're choosing denial over reality. Second comment: sometimes the healthiest thing you can do is accept that family doesn't mean unconditional loyalty when one side is toxic. Update 5. HR finally made their decision. Trevor's suspension became a termination. I got the email this morning, short, clinical, and final. It simply said, "Effective immediately. Trevor, last name is no longer employed with the company. We appreciate your cooperation during this process. No drama, no ceremony. Just done." But outside of the office, the drama has been relentless. Trevor wasted no time telling anyone who would listen that I ruined his life. Apparently, he's been calling distant relatives, family friends, even some old neighbors, painting me as a jealous stepsister who couldn't handle his natural charm. He's spinning this story, where he was beloved at work until I decided to tear him down out of spite. I found this out because one of my cousins, one I actually still get along with, texted me screenshots of a family group chat I wasn't included in. Trevor had been ranting. She couldn't stand that people liked me. She used her position to get me fired. HR bought her crocodile tears. She's fake as hell. Most people just sent heart emojis or hang in there. My stepdad wrote, "Don't let her win. We've got your back." My mum wrote, "This family's broken." It stung, I'll admit it. But it also made me realize something. If their support is conditional on me allowing myself to be disrespected, sabotaged, and humiliated, then maybe it's not support at all. At work, the reaction has been the opposite. My boss pulled me aside after the announcement and said, "You've handled this with more patience than anyone else would have. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise." A few co-workers even admitted they'd been afraid to speak up about Trevor's behavior but were glad I did. Hearing that reassured me that I wasn't just imagining things. It was real, and it mattered. The ripple effects in my personal life have been harder. My mum hasn't called me since the birthday party I wasn't invited to. My stepdad is still stonewalling me. I did run into Trevor once though, and it turned ugly. It was at the grocery store of all places. He spotted me near the produce aisle and stormed over, red-faced, muttering loud enough for others to hear. "You think you're so much better than everyone. Enjoy your little career, because no one's going to hire you after I tell the truth." I didn't take the bait. I just looked him in the eye and said, "You already tried that. It didn't work. Have a good day." Then I walked away. I'll admit, my hands were shaking afterward. It's one thing to read his words in a text. It's another to face his rage in person. But for once, I didn't let him see me rattled. That felt like a small victory. As for my family, I've accepted that this might be the new normal. Them united behind Trevor, me on the outside. It hurts, especially with my mum. But I've also found surprising comfort in the support of friends, co-workers, and even distant relatives who've quietly messaged me to say, "I believe you," or "Good for you for standing up for yourself." And here's the irony. For years, my stepdad and Trevor acted like I was the weak one. Too shy, too quiet, too focused on work. But in the end, I was the one who stood up, faced the fallout, and didn't cave. Trevor's the one spiraling, clinging to excuses, and refusing to own up to what he did. I don't know what comes next for him. I'm sure he'll find another job eventually. Though with his reputation, it won't be easy. Maybe that will force him to grow up. Though I'm not holding my breath. For me, I'm focusing on work, on the friendships I've built outside of my family, and on protecting my peace. I've learned the hard way that family loyalty means nothing if it requires you to sacrifice your dignity and sanity. So, yeah, the bridge with my stepdad and Trevor might be burned. But honestly, I feel lighter walking away from the smoke. First comment: HR doesn't fire people lightly. For them to terminate him outright, it means his behavior was way beyond acceptable. You did the right thing. Second comment: losing toxic family is painful, but sometimes it's healthier than clinging to them. Protecting yourself doesn't make you heartless, it makes you sane. Final update. It's been about 9 months since everything with Trevor blew up, and I thought I'd share where things stand now. Work first. Things are steady, calm, and, for the first time in a long time, drama-free. Without Trevor lurking in the background, I've been able to focus fully on my projects. I even got promoted 2 months ago, something my boss said was long overdue but finally possible without distractions. That was the nicest way anyone has ever phrased it, but I knew exactly what she meant. My team feels stronger too. It's amazing how much one toxic person can poison an environment and how quickly things heal once they're gone. Colleagues who used to keep their heads down are more relaxed. There's more collaboration, less tension. It feels like a different office. As for Trevor, the last I heard, he bounced between a couple of short-lived jobs. Apparently, he told everyone I sabotaged his references, which isn't true. HR doesn't discuss details, but word travels. His own behavior followed him. At some point, he stopped showing up in my orbit altogether. No surprise, since burning bridges is what he does best. Family-wise, not much has changed. My mom and stepdad still close ranks around him. They host dinners, birthdays, and get-togethers I'm not invited to. At first, it cut deep. Missing family holidays stung, even if they were always a little tense. But I realized something important. I don't miss the events themselves. I miss the idea of family that I never really had. Instead, I've built my own version of family. Friends who check in, co-workers who celebrated my promotion with cupcakes, a mentor who's been encouraging me to consider grad school, people who show up without strings attached. That feels more like family than anything my stepdad's household has ever given me. The biggest surprise? My cousin, the one who used to send me screenshots of the family group chat, quietly cut ties with Trevor too. She told me over coffee last month that watching how he handled everything opened her eyes. She said, "I defended him for years because that's what we were taught to do. But he made his bed. You just stopped covering for him." That meant more than I can say. Looking back, the whole ordeal was brutal, but clarifying. For years, I second-guessed myself, wondering if I was too sensitive, too serious, too unwilling to play along. But now I see that what I called sensitivity was actually self-respect. What they called serious was just me refusing to be a clown for their amusement. And what they wanted me to play along with was dysfunction. So no, I don't regret speaking up. Losing people who only valued me when I was silent isn't a loss. It's a gain. If anything, the biggest lesson I've taken away is this. Silence doesn't keep the peace. It just postpones the explosion. By telling the truth and holding my ground, I ripped off the bandage. It hurt. But the healing started right after. I don't know if my relationship with my mum will ever recover. Maybe one day she'll see past the story Trevor spun. Or maybe she won't. I've accepted that either way, I'll be okay. Because for the first time in my life, I feel like I'm steering my own story. And that's worth more than any holiday dinner or forced family smile, forced family smile, forced family smile, forced family smile.